And that's how the guild started, very simply, and grew very rapidly. So tonight, Janet Palmer and her family are going to honor 7 generations of quilting from Betty Maddox's family. So Janet, give me the mic.
Okay, I've never spoken to microphone before. All right, so tonight, as we celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Pine Tree Guild, we also honor a milestone close to our hearts. So it would have been the 85th birthday of our founding president, Betty Maddox, who was my grandma. Betty's passion for quilting was deeply rooted in a rich family tradition that spans over 7 generations. This evening, we take a vibrant journey through our family's quilting history, tracing the threads of creativity and dedication from Betty's ancestors to the quilters of today. We will share the stories and showcase the work of each generation, from the pioneering quilters who laid the foundation to the young artists continuing the legacy. Please welcome to the stage my great-aunt Jane Wood, sister to Betty Maddox, who will lead us on this celebration of talent, memory, and love that has been stitched into our family's heritage.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's my pleasure to invite you along on Betty's journey, our journey, this evening. As the youngest and last of my generation, I have had the honor and the privilege to know every one of the quilters we speak of tonight, all those who've gone before, and the beautiful, bright, and talented generations that follow. And I'm humbled by them all. As many of you know, in addition to her love of quilting, Betty shared the love of everything John Deere with her husband Chuck. Through the years, she collected both vintage and modern John Deere fabrics, and she created dozens of quilts featuring those iconic factors. Hanging before me here on the podium is her sweet, hand-appliqued miniature, Dear Sue. Betty's journey begins with Lily Stroud, who was born in 1883 into a world vastly different from the one we know today. She came into life during an era of horse-drawn carriages, oil lamps, and a society deeply rooted in agrarian traditions. Her early years were marked by the simplicity and the hardships of rural life, where self-reliance was not just a virtue, but a necessity. Lily witnessed the turn of the century and the profound changes it brought. She married, started a family, embracing the role of homemaker. She was the heart of her home, a place where love was stitched together with care and resourcefulness. When the Great Depression struck in the 1930s, the world around Lily crumbled. Jobs vanished, banks fell, and poverty became a daily reality for millions of Americans. For Lily and her family, the challenge was not just about finding food, but also about staying warm in harsh midwinter nights. Purchasing new blankets or clothing was a luxury few could afford, but Lily refused to let her family suffer in the cold. She became a utility quilter. In the tradition of many women of her time, she repurposed worn-out clothing and heat tacks to create quilts. These quilts were not the decorative, ornate quilts, works of art associated with quilting today. They were practical, functional, and made to endure. Every stitch was a testament to her resilience, a way to provide comfort and warmth in a world where both were in short supply. Lily's quilts were more than just blankets. They were symbols of survival. Every one told a story of resourcefulness, of making do with what was available. The feed sacks, often stamped with the company logos or simple patterns, became canvases of her creativity. She would carefully cut and piece them together, blending colors and textures in a way that turned the ordinary into something extraordinary. Her children, wrapped in these quilts on these cold nights, knew that they were protected, not just by the fabric, but by their mother's unwavering dedication. Lily Stroud passed away in 1973 at the age of 90, having lived through some of the most tumultuous times in American history. She saw the world change in ways that she could never have imagined as a child, from the invention of the automobile to the rise of modern technology. But Lily's legacy remains unchanged. Her quilts are symbols of a woman who, in the face of unimaginable challenges, found a way to provide for, protect, and preserve her family. Lily Stroud's life is a testament to the power of resourcefulness and the enduring strength of a mother's love. They are reminders of a time when life was hard, but love was strong. And now, I'd like to introduce Serena Palmer, Janet's daughter-in-law, and she's going to share some of the quilts on our family's journey, beginning with Generation 1.
We have one of Lily's most notable quilts. It's the Seven Sisters quilt. This quilt block predates the Civil War. The quilt says that the 7 stars in the block represent the first 7 states that seceded from the U.S. before Abraham Lincoln's inauguration in 1861. This quilt top was quilted in 2024 by Lily's great-granddaughter, Jane Wood. Flowers of the Month. Beautifully embroidered in the 1930s, it was crafted from feed sacks during a time when reusing materials was key. Farming magazines were quite popular back then, showcasing designs for quilts and embroidery. This quilt top was finished in 2024 by Janet Palmer, Lily's great-great-granddaughter. Ocean Waves, the original. This Ocean Waves quilt pattern can be traced back to the mid-1800s and is a New England-inspired pattern. This quilt was made in the 1950s. And Ocean Waves number 2. This very special quilt was made by Lily in 1968 at the age of 85. It would be Lily's last quilt to complete. The second Ocean Waves quilt was completely handmade for a nursing home in Dardanelle, Arkansas.
Our 7-generation story is centered mostly around our maternal heritage, but we know that quilting was also a way of life in our paternal ancestry as well. During a time when there were very large families, siblings could range in age over many years, even decades. So generations can get a little blurry, but in Generation 2, we remember 2 grandmas, Sarah Florence Vincent Parker Breeden, and Leela May Stroud Bratton. Grandma Breeden, like Lily Stroud, was born in the late 1800s. Her family, typical of many Scotch-Irish settlers in the Carolinas, migrated first to the Deep South, Mississippi, Alabama, then northward toward Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. As a young woman, she married the much older Zachariah Parker, with whom she raised her family. Betty's and my father was her youngest son, John. After Zachariah's passing, she married John Breeden. As a very small child, I remember visiting Grandma Breeden in her little granny house in the backyard of my childhood home. I watched attentively as she sat in her rocker, hand-piecing lovely quilts, one of which started for me by her in 1950, would one day wrap my tiny daughter after it was completed by my mother in 1973. Leela Mae Stroud Bratton was born in 1902 in Tuxeco, Missouri. Her life spanned remarkable historical events, including the Great Depression, the Great War, and the Dust Bowl. Leela married Albert Benjamin Bratton in Arkansas, and together they raised 9 children, building a life filled with hard work and family. Leela and the children picked cotton, and Benny worked at a cotton mill, supporting their family from the very crops that would evolve to become the cotton quilting fabric that we so cherish today. And quilting was an important part of Grandma Bratton's life as well. Betty fondly remembered spreading out Leela's quilts on the floor to hand baste them so Leela could quilt them by hand in her hoop. Even in her later years, while living in a retirement home, Leela continued to quilt. Her great-granddaughter, Janet Maddox Palmer, recalls helping her cut fabric for a quilt, which Leela carefully pieced together. After Leela's passing in 1988, that same quilt was returned to Janet and quilted by Betty. I think we are looking for some Gen 2 quilts.
The Sunbonnet Sue quilt was made by Grandma Breeden on the paternal side of the family. The blocks were originally made for her granddaughter Jane in 1950. The quilt was then completed by Lois Parker, Jane's mother, for Jane's daughter Beth in 1973. Falling between this generation and the next, we have this beautiful string quilt that we felt was worth showing. It was made by Fanny Frances Powell Nelson, born in 1890. She is the great-grandmother of Tim Palmer, Janet's husband. Quilters on both sides of our families. This is thought to be the original quilt pattern of Robbing Peter to Pay Paul, a classic patchwork block that features curved sleeves and is believed to have originated in the mid-19th to early 20th century. The name comes from the idea that the pieces of each block are robbed to create the design of another block. Leela gifted this quilt to her oldest great-granddaughter, Joan Maddox Hartung, for her 10th birthday in 1967 while visiting her daughter Lois in Crow's Landing, California. This trip around the world quilt made in the 1970s was a creation admired by Leela's granddaughter during her visits to Arkansas. She was captivated by the intricate pieces and the thoughtful color scheme. Once completed, Leela gifted this quilt to that granddaughter, Betty Maddox. Betty Maddox basted this quilt in 1980 for her grandmother, Leela, so that she could quilt it in a handheld frame. Unfortunately, she passed before completing this one. 40 years later, still it sat basted in Betty's belongings. That was until Betty's daughter Janet found it and completed quilting it in 2023. This snowball quilt was pieced by hand while residing in her nursing home in Arkansas. Great-granddaughter Janet Palmer cut this quilt out for her, choosing a pattern with large pieces. Once completed, it was quilted and gifted back to Janet.
Generation 3 is represented by Lois Ellen Parker, Betty's and my mom. Hers was a life woven of hard work, love, and quilting. She was born and raised in Arkansas, and she married young. But in the late 1930s, she and her husband Jock moved from their native Arkansas to Oklahoma with their first child, Florence. You may remember her as Flo. Jock worked in the Oklahoma coal mines, and they had 3 more children, Bill, Vera, and Betty. But Jock developed black lung disease and was unable to return to the mines. Now, at this time, our country was preparing for World War II. So, forced to seek new opportunities elsewhere, Jock and Lois learned there was work in the shipyards of Southern California. They both found jobs there, building ships. Lois became one of the iconic Rosie the Riveters. You know that, Rosie the Riveters, contributing her strength and skill to the war effort. After the war, they stayed in California, drawn by the promise of a better life for their growing family. They migrated north to the rich farmlands of the San Joaquin Valley. Jock found work as a farmhand. Lois cleaned houses to help support the family. Later, she worked in the dry bean warehouses and valley canneries, balancing multiple roles. Then they had 2 more children, my brother and me. And they raised the 2nd generation in a new era of opportunity. Despite working on